A warm welcome to all of you. Welcome to our new podcast series, Indo-Pacific Challenges Podcast. This is our first pilot episode. We might say that this is the first time that we are having this idea coming into reality.
Yes.
And basically, we have a research group at the University of Pécs. We are from the University of Pécs, Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences. The name of our research group is Indo-Pacific Challenges Research Group. It's not only the three of us, but the plan is that all of us at one point are going to join us, and we're going to talk about topics and issues connected to the Indo-Pacific, which is obviously a quite wide region in that sense. But what we're going to first do is that the very first topic is going to be connected to drones, because we have also one member of the research group, Lana Oseletseva, who is from Ukraine. And in that sense, obviously, it's quite important to understand what's going on within Ukraine and how we can turn that topic towards ongoing global geopolitical issues, talking about the Middle East, and then obviously turning towards our region, to the Indo-Pacific. And the second member of today's podcast is Danilo Lorenzo de los Santos, my PhD student, focusing on Chinese foreign policy within Southeast Asia, China-Philippines relations, and many things that are coming up, including drones and drone technologies as well. And my name is Zoltán Vörös, associate professor here at the university, head of this research group. The plan with this podcast is to introduce our researches, focus on ongoing issues, turn those into research possibilities. So basically the plan is to help our research group communicating about our outcomes, about our results, understanding these global processes, and to hopefully provide useful information to those as well who are interested in this podcast. So I really hope that you're going to stay with us for this podcast, and we're going to have you for the upcoming ones as well. And after this introduction, the first topic, as I've said, is going to be about the drones and this new warfare and how it might affect, obviously, in the Pacific region as well. But we're going to start with the somehow basics in a way that drone technologies and how Ukraine started to revolutionize the technology, because that's definitely that we're talking about. And what we can see is that it's not just about military technology anymore. So when it's about drones, we can see it's becoming a strategic tool. It's becoming an industrial, economic, and geopolitical factored reality when it's about not just the war within Ukraine. And I guess this is the starting statement that we should have. What's going on with the drones by 2026?
Welcome, everyone, and thank you, Dr. Vorosh. And we are now with Lana as well, which is also part of our research group. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first podcast. So initially, what I can say is that we have to first establish what is a drone. So when we think about what drones are, the very definition of drones can be classified in three different things: biological, sound, and human. Well, we are going to read out what it is based on the dictionary, basically, based from the dictionary. It is, in the biological sense, a stingless honeybee whose main function is to mate with honeybee, okay, or queen bee, rather. And then in sound, we have the continuous, low, monotonous hum similar to engine noises. And then finally, in the human perspective, a person who does manual, repetitive labor or the usual 9 to 5. But when you think about it, when you think about what a drone is right now, it is an aircraft that is guided remotely, unmanned. Popular knowledge, of course, because, of course, drones have taken over much of popular culture because of the war with Russia and Ukraine. Even the very definition of what a drone is has been changed. And because of that, the application of the technology in war has always been a critical point for technology, as it hastens R&D, and eventually the technology trickles down to peacetime socio-technical regimes and innovations. So when you think about drones right now, we always think about the drones that are being mass-produced and sold in markets. It is something that flies, something that takes videos. Videographers would actually love it, because this is the primary application of what drones were before wartime. However, of course, in this time it's different. available technology has been utilized and has mutated into a far different use case altogether. Before, it was just taking videos for weddings, for events. And now it has taken on a more sinister application, which is, of course, to take out any enemy combatants. And this kind of mutation is an innovation model that has been unprecedented. Why? Because this pathway favors the ability to quickly adapt to strategic realities using already available equipment. And this is harking back to, for example, in the global war of terror, where IEDs, improvised explosive devices, were the primary tool by the insurgents to take out American forces.
But this is then like an important question that I might have is that are we talking about changing or modifying the course of these wars, or we are revolutionizing the whole warfare with these drones, or using this technology within war conditions? Just one sec, because maybe something that obviously we're talking about these reconnaissance drones. We are talking about the FPVs, but by today in Ukraine, and obviously Lana at this point will be able to join us as well. We're talking about AI being introduced to technology. So is it really a revolution within warfare? Because
please.
If you don't mind, from Ukrainian side, I would better say that maybe it's both, because rather it's who is building technology itself. And basically in Ukraine, it started not governments, it started from ordinary people, from volunteers, students, basically. So basically we started build a new military history, and it changed everything in that way. So I believe it's both.
So basically to change everything is important in this case.
Yes.
So maybe it's a revolution there.
Yeah. Well, if we're going to talk about innovation curves, where we are talking about the innovation phases, how innovation manifests from the groundwork, we have to already acknowledge that it's a chicken and egg argument. Does the use case evolve because of the current context? Or was it already foreseen by, by the military planners for them to fight this particular war? Because you have to understand as well that drones is not particularly new. Yes. We have to understand that this has been ongoing even before World War II. There were already conceptions of what drones were. And there were conceptions of flying bombs during World War II. Whereas they were rudimentary. They were just strapping in a 500-pound bomb. This was conceptually was a viable weight back before. I'm going to cite a study later on where the idea of unmanned drones was already there because, of course, of the effects of war. But if we're going to talk about revolutionizing what war really is, I really think that it has evolved the dogma of warfare right now. It has changed the idea of what war is, because the kinetic warfare, in the simplest sense, is about people going into war, taking out each other using arms, using kinetic force, using violent means in order for them to take out the adversary. But now it has taken on a different case, whereas the very idea of warfare has been changed towards asymmetric warfare. And this is what we're going to have to think about. That asymmetric warfare is basically what tilts modern combat towards lesser capable adversaries or lesser capable militaries in order for them to equalize the battlefield. And I think that is what is revolutionizing right now, because the very idea of utilizing already available materials has already been there. For example, in Vietnam War, punji sticks, for example, they were using traps in order for them to take out a much more capable army. But then again, was the United States Army capable, or can we say that they really won that war? Not exactly. They fought that war with sticks and stones, and that is what we are seeing right now. Asymmetric warfare has taken on a different means, and this is not through punji sticks anymore, but through these kinds of drones that are already there in the market, because they were forced. Evolution was forced. Evolution was forced towards the Ukrainians in order for them to adapt to battlefield necessities.
But this is the reason why we're going to deal with Ukraine. And I have one article from the 21st of May, 2026 on BBC. It's about like highlighting it. According to the Ukrainian officials, Ukrainian air defense is much more effective than it was a year before, for instance, that in these days, 94% of the long-range drones and 73% of the missiles they could intercept, compared to the previous year when it was only 55%. So basically, what you were highlighting here is essential, and that's I guess why we put this together. I guess that's why we planned this episode in this way. That what is happening right now in Ukraine is dramatic in a way that how technology is changing in front of our eyes just right now, and how they are, according to the recent news, changing maybe the course of the conflict as well.
And maybe let me start from early 2014.
Sure.
So basically when Russia took Crimea and started war in Donbass, so Ukraine army was in bad conditions, and basically we inherited some drones from Soviet era, but they were very modernized, I would say, so it was hard to do something with them, and people didn't use first-person vision drones that time. As Enzo mentioned, it was mostly about personal usage, so people bought, and it was also expensive because, as we can see from when China started this revolution, I would say it gone from there. When they started introduced, at 2013 was introduced DJI Phantom, and from where our people saw this, but it was expensive, so it costed rather $1,000 till $2,000, so it was expensive to do something with that, and people didn't know. But later, after that, and during this era, during this time, from 2014 till 2022, so such ages, we didn't do anything that much, we didn't put them into war somehow, and only from 2022, we can see when we gone to survival mode, that's when people started saying what we can do that we will not lose this war. And from where people started saying, because they had some knowledges about that, because we saw how is that, some IT specialized students, volunteers, they try to do something with that, and they try to adapt into this situation. So it started from there. So it was forced, I would say. And how that's where from civil and DJI Mavic drones, we started to see opportunity to build FPV drone. And it was easy because people could buy something from China market, it was cheap. And if we will even look through how is structure of drone, and I would say that also we used, as I mentioned before, so we had inheritage from Soviet era, and for example, we use still even, according to 24 media, RPG warhead, so it's the most common, which we use 7, and basically it's against tanks, and it's crazy how is it implemented, so we use it still, and you can imagine how many we have from that, and it gone to that point. But of course, we have different types of warheads, but it basically came from there.
Yeah. And also, just to add to that, Anna, I would want to highlight as well that this is just an example of war, how wars are now fought differently. We have to understand that, take into consideration the evolving domain of warfare from the purely kinetic, now it's industry-driven. And just like what you said, the shadows of the Cold War were still there. They were using stockpiles from the Cold War and utilizing it to new technologies or combining it to new technologies. And right now, it's now industry-driven. That's number one. It's driven by the economies of scale. Who produces more, faster, and more impactful. And just like what Lana said, the DJI Mavic, I just want to raise this particular data. Way back in 2022, 2023, there was these are coming from different sources, that Ukraine was able to buy 60 to 80% of the world supply of DJI Mavic drones. And when you think about who manufactures this, then it gives you a very different perspective on the economies and how wars are being fought right now in an age of globalization. Because, today there's primarily highlighted in the Russia-Ukraine war conflict, where Russia is seen as a far more superior army. But then again, right now, a lot of people or analysts are saying that this has gone into a war wherein people are buying uniforms, plate armors from Temu. When you think about that, when you think about the intersection of economy, the intersection of technology, and also how wars are fought right now, it's no longer a war wherein wars are fought fastly or with urgency so that you can effectively just overcome the other adversary, because this was popularized during the global war on terror with the shock and awe campaign from the United States. And now it is a war of attrition. This is basically because now everything can be acquired. Therefore, the problem is wars can be sustained furthermore. And this is one of the things that we have to understand, that because right now a lot of these technologies has taken into a more commercial sense wherein people can just acquire it. People can even 3D print these particular drones through Reddit, through other forums. You can have these plans. And if you have a machine that can 3D print using filaments coming from recycled plastics, you can already use a particular industry to affect the war conditions. So this is the very idea of what war we are fighting right now.
Yep, you mentioned speed. How fast you can have different missions and activities, and often drones are highlighted in a way that obviously it can fasten the whole process of killing the enemy, finding, targeting, killing the enemy. And basically with the new technologies in Ukraine, we also can see that speed is important. I believe that we should talk about. It's also about often I'm reading about the fact that by now the war is also an innovation race. But I believe that war was always an innovation race. Yes. So it was always about introducing the new and better technologies. So I would say nothing new. The technology is different, obviously, and we can see that who has a better drone technology is going to have the upper hand. That's for sure. Yeah. What would you like to add?
But here is the most important thing that we have to highlight. The differentiation between these two is that when you think about innovation way back in World War II, we hark back in, for example, during the reign of the Nazis, where they cling into the idea of wonder weapons, bigger tanks, faster jets, using a lot of R&D, a lot of money thrown into it in order for them to create these wonderful weapons of mass destruction. But now it has been different. Now innovation is more decentralized and it's more granular, meaning that it is now leaning into who can manufacture more or can impact more, and not just, who has the bigger, more high-tech tank, high-tech weapon. It's more about the usability, the turnaround rate, and also the economies of where they can manufacture it. Because I would want to highlight this before it escapes my memory. When you talked about AI right now in Ukraine, way back in the first months of the war, no one has ever thought about AI. And now they're using AI to train their personnel, to train people, civilians who volunteered, in order for them to target enemies using FPVs. And they're using AI in order for that. And I'm just going to highlight this particular high development, especially wherein they already created the Hornet drone, which is in particular using AI as a tool for targeting enemies in a more efficient way, especially during the time that, for example, in Ukrainian weather, it's very much, sometimes it's very cloudy. It very, very much affects how drones fly. And they used AI to target their enemies. So we can see the intersection of in just how many years innovation has already taken over drones at the very sense of what a drone is, from just using for cinematic applications. Now, target acquisition, attacks, reconnaissance, and everything else under the sun. So now, as you said, innovation is actually the backbone of wars. But however, the way innovation is being done right now is more granular. It's more specific, low cost, and more targeted towards mass production.
Yeah, many things you added, and I believe that definitely this cost exchange issue, the cost effectiveness is quite essential. Also, the how available the technology is. That's also important.
I must add, yes, that it become available, because as we can see, as price was much more expensive if we look at DJI. Now it became basically $300, $500. And also we become a first country, I would say. Volodymyr Zelensky signed a decree. he created the unnamed system forces. So it's basically caused also revolution, I would say, in that way. And also, even if we talk not about AI, of course, it's important nowadays, but even before 2023, for example, we created naval drones, and it was really important for us because when Russia tried to be against us, so we used them, and it was effectively. So it was called Magura. Also, it was really important that we destroyed oil refineries there, and it was effective. So they lost their gasoline and diesel production in Russia fell by 10 till 15%, and fuel prices went inside Russia up. So they couldn't fix this. So it was.
And I believe that that's also important, that we also could add, I don't know if this would be the fifth or sixth point, that the range. I mean, obviously it was not a surprise that Russia could attack even Kiev. So that's there since the first day of the conflict.
Yeah.
But what is happening these days
Even
is
it
that
was promised in few days that they will take capital.
Yeah,
but
and obviously we can see that they have disastrous attacks still, and that's a possibility. But on the other hand, by now it's also not surprising that Ukraine reaches out to Moscow. Not just talking about refineries, but the fact that the new technologies.
It's true, because we have to also understand the very effect of drones right now. It's not just kinetic, it's more psychological. It was already reported, in a lot of analysts have been saying that even the Victory Day parade in Russia has been, mellowed down because of these particular attacks, because they have been affected by that. And the psychological idea of drones flying over, the droning sound, for example, it has been a recorded case that those who battle in the front line have experienced PTSD from the droning sound, has experienced a lot of traumatic experiences. Because drones right now, when you think about drones, it's unpredictable. You don't know when it's coming. You can hear it. I mean, it brings me back to the very idea of the psychological impact of Stuka dive bombers when they have that trumpet. And now you have these drones flying over.
Okay, yeah.
Unfortunately, I witnessed it, and it's flying so down. And I would say, it's really influence, especially in east part of Ukraine. People hear this, so yes, and we come maybe to Iran somehow in that point, because they try help to Russia by that point, and that's where they took this. So it's, and the problem here is that they use not one drone, not one Shahed, for example. They use like a lot of.
Yes.
And that's why it's bad. And here we come to that it's not proportional, because we will spend more money, more cost to defend ourselves, and it become in that point.
We are in the final days of May 2026 when we are recording this. And in these days, we can see that Ukraine is slowly, but these days gaining back territories occupied by Russia. Ukrainian territories gaining back those Ukrainian territories. Can we say that it is a possibility because of drone technology or other factors?
I believe it's mostly all together. Also because of our spirit, because if people wouldn't, for example, we had also when people tried to save money, that we will donate to drones, and that's how we got into that. That's why people help citizens, everyone. That's why it become possible. I believe because if
multiple factors, but the drones are adding that extra card.
Yes, because we can use, and it's really nice because government. If I believe so, if only government would do this, it wouldn't be a possibility. But because of our people, it become possible. As I mentioned, so all people got this knowledge how to do this, because we had also some trainings. I believe really students, volunteers, everyone could do this. We ordered details from China for cheap, and it became possible because of that.
And also to add to that, we have to also highlight how drone technology has been evolving from the very start of wars. Let me just highlight this: that before, when you think about drones, it's only about flying drones right now. But you have to understand that drone technology has taken on different aspects. For example, land drones, for example, that were used in demilitarization operations. For example, in some conflict places, the mining operations. And these are kinds of like the applications of what a drone is in peacetime applications. But now, Ukraine, let me just put it into context that they have 800 military contractors under their umbrella of the military industrial complex that has been gaining traction from the start of the war. And now they have been creating the more popular ones that have been taking into we have to take into consideration rather are the sea drones. The sea drones, for example, have been a new concept during the Russia-Ukraine war. From flying drones, now we have sea drones. Whereas it was about the Sea Baby in 2022, wherein they used it in the Crimean bridge attack in 2023, the Samum corvette attack in 2023 as well, and it has been credited in various damaging attacks from larger ships. Because you also have to understand that drones are not there to destroy these huge ships, these jets, for example, but it is used in order for them to decommission these kinds of multi-billion systems, rather. So when you think about that, it's not about blowing it up into pieces like Michael Bay. It's more about decommissioning it in order for them to advance their military forward against a very, very much a larger adversary, more complex adversary, technologically more adept adversary. So that's how asymmetric wars are fought.
I guess this is the point, or the perfect point to turn towards the Middle East. And we can see that since Israel and the United States started its military mission against Iran, again, drones were coming into the picture. Mm-hmm. Hundreds and thousands of these Shahed drones were fired, launched at Israel and many other countries within the region. And obviously how it is connected to not just to Ukraine, but to our topic today is that obviously multiple discussions we had, multiple podcasts I listened about it. When it's about the cost exchange issue, Israel and the United States realized that, for instance, these Shahed drones are quite cost effective against their TOD Tomahawks, hundreds of dollars versus thousands and tens of thousands of dollars technologies. Basically, I'm not saying, obviously, that they will lose in the war, because that is not the case, although it's not easy to wrap it up or present it in a way that any of these sides have won it. But when it's about this cost exchange reality, Iran was far better than the Israeli and American military. And for me, I believe that is the important, and I'm giving you the word. It seems that although in Ukraine we are talking about that for years now the drone technologies were there, and Ukraine is not just defending itself in the beginning, but trying to attack as well. It seems that the world was not really, we were looking at what Ukraine is doing, but not really understanding what they were really doing.
Yeah. So just to give you a very idea, like cost asymmetries that you were raising a while ago, because this is very much essentially the backbone of asymmetric warfare. Right now, just to give you very much an idea of how U.S. drone technology has evolved. We have to remember that drone technology before was used during the global war on terror against basically the hunt for Osama bin Laden. And it was a Predator drone. It was used for initially for reconnaissance, and now it has created, it was able to fire a Hellfire missile to take out adversaries. So that's number one. But now, from that starting point of military drones in the United States, I'm just going to highlight this, that the modern categorization of drones for their dogma is first, they have four. They have actually four types. First is combat and strike drones, UCAV, for recon, attack, and target acquisition. These are utilized in short ranges, easily deployable by battalions.
The Shahed is like this UCAV.
Yes.
But the Shahed is actually a different kind, different kind altogether. I'm going to go that in a second. Then the second is the high altitude reconnaissance, or the HAIL, which is long range intel gathering. So before, as you can remember way back in the Cold War, remember when the spy planes in Russia, it has been infamous, like it was shot down. And they had a United States pilot, in hostage. And now they have a drone for that. And third is the tactical medium altitude for recon, attack, target acquisition used by ground troops. And this is like a larger one, basically a suicide drone. And then finally, the loitering munition that we're talking about, the Shahed, the Bayraktar, which is used for recon, target acquisition, attack capability, and also it differentiates itself from all of these because it loiters and then it looks at particular targets as it moves in real time, which is, again, I really think that, for example, in Lana's case, were you able to witness this kind of like drones in particular in Ukraine, and how did it affect you?
Yes, unfortunately. And I would say also, if we return back to Iran, why we mentioned Ukraine here. So basically, we are in picture here because first, as a testing ground, I believe, and also the Shahed drone has been deployed against Ukraine targets. So that's how by September 2022, for example, Russia had launched over 8,000 of drones at us. And also it gave Ukraine, I would say, a real world data on capabilities, also vulnerabilities, limitations, and any, I believe, laboratory could provide this. And also secondly, I would say that in response, Ukraine built its own electronic warfare system. So also long-range strike capabilities. It helped us in some way, in some cases. And also Ukraine contributed both battle-tested intelligence on Iranian drone technology and proven solutions that other countries can study right now from us.
That's true. And then just to tie everything together, just your point a while ago on cost asymmetries, I'm going to highlight this data so that our listeners would actually be knowledgeable about this as well, because this is very much highly important. For example, a short-range air drone is $1,000, okay? And the main target for a short-range air drone is a main battle tank. And a main battle tank will roughly cost around 3.9 million because Russia is using stockpile tanks coming from the Cold War. This is like the adjusted to inflation amount. And for loitering air drones, it's $35,000. And then it's actually targeting S-400 air defense systems, which cost $500 million. And finally, you have the sea drone. The sea drone costs around $250,000 because it's multi-purpose. It's not only for recon, it can also shoot ground-to-air missiles, just another dimension that they already created a while ago. And it's targeting corvette ships, which is $65 million. And when you think about these main battle tanks, S-400 missile systems or defense systems, and corvette ships, and these take years in order for them to recreate. And if, for example, $1,000 drone would destroy a particular part of it, it takes months in order for them to recuperate that. So that is what asymmetric warfare is.
And also, I wanted to highlight that here we can see a cost exchange problem, which you mentioned. So that when we defend ourselves, we pay more, unfortunately, because if Russia take from Iran drones, it's cheaper for them, so way more, and they could do it. A lot of drones they could send on us, Shaheds, everything doesn't matter. And when we defend, so basically only our weapon right now is drones when we can make because it's cheaper for us.
And you became the experts of the technology as well, right?
Yeah.
So, because if we're talking about the Middle East, and obviously that's the reason how or why we were putting it together like this podcast, is that also Ukrainian experts were requested to go to the States, go to the Middle East as well, and basically provide support, help for the militaries there, how to use these technologies, defend against these technologies. And Ukraine is by now, while fighting for their territories,
We learned something also.
You learned
Yes.
something, and right now you are teaching the world
Yes.
how
Especially in the Pacific region, I would say.
especially in those
Yes.
regions where there are possible conflict zones and yes.
So I would want to also add to that April this year, Volodymyr Zelensky opened up about this in X. I monitor everything in real time, and he opened up about the possible export of Ukrainian weapons to countries through controlled exports, meaning that it's not all countries that you're going to export this, but to particular countries that align to them. And with this, meaning that all countries are going to have access to this for the approximately 800 arms producers in Ukraine. Significantly, it was projected that it would be exported through cooperation of other countries, meaning that not only because they're going to make it in Ukraine, but also from licensing as well, because it works both ways. When you create these partnerships, when you create these relations with other countries, you're also securitizing your supply chain, and we are going to go back to that in the Indo-Pacific region. I'm going to talk about that later. But you're going to, when you bilateral relations happen, you are securitizing not only your relations in symbol, but rather the supply coming from those countries who are also capable of making these particular parts of your drones. So it works both ways. You can license it, you can export it, you can train them. So therefore, Ukraine has been very much aggressive in their diplomacy, especially in the ASEAN region. Before, let me just clarify this. I think Lana already made a paper about this, that in the ASEAN, before the war, Ukraine was not there. Ukrainian diplomacy was not there. And then suddenly, I guess, Lana, you have something to say about it?
Yes, basically after war happened, so we came to that and we decided focus in regions where we didn't took part, I believe. But I believe right now it would be better for us if we focus on some regions like that. Also, we contribute to Philippines and so many countries from ASEAN, and we will talk about that later.
Yeah.
How
And
Basically.
in adding to that, yes, it's true because they are now creating partnerships with the Middle East, the Persian Gulf, Europe, and the Caucasus, and also a possible U.S. deal for these drones. Because even though that the U.S. already has this, it is also cost efficient for them to look at outside, war-tested technologies, which is more cost efficient as compared to more endemic high-tech technology. So there are tiers to this. You have to remember that there is like the wonder weapons that a lot of people would, a lot of regimes use for power signaling. That's why we have those kinds of events for those parades where you use your big rockets, coming down the street, signaling to everyone that, we are powerful. But real wars are not fought entirely with those huge high-tech, because high-tech materials and also those weapons. Because real wars right now, as reflected in the Russian-Ukraine war, is fought by readily available weapons created in mass and deployed easily. So I really think that in the Middle East, I think that right now the cost asymmetries has been helping them prove that point. And I really think that the United States right now has been rethinking their dogma about this, the UAV and everything else. So that's why,
definitely.
yeah, that's why, as you can see right now, even Trump has been thinking or has been, adamant. I mean, is completely against boots on the ground. Because if you can fight wars utilizing unmanned vehicles, I mean, it's a war wherein you can say that you're not sacrificing your own nation's blood, And as far as I know, that is what is changing the course of wars right now. Can you fight wars without a visible price? And that is philosophically something that we have to think about. That can wars be fought without any kind of cost? And that's the thing right now, because one of the fundamental things that we have to really face is that if wars can be fought without any kind of damage, you won't feel the damage in your part, then easily conflict can be created using robots against robots. And this is this is completely far from our imagination way back before in the 90s. Terminator, for example. And now it has been a reality. Will it be drones against drones? As you said, like electronic warfare against electronic warfare.
Right now what's happening.
Yeah. And then can we therefore say, rather, that the next kind of war fighter will be the people who are playing games? Because it has been a running joke in the community that any 5-year-old in the next 10 years can fly a drone. And if you gamify that.
And so I must add to you that right now, really, I see even my acquaintances, my friends, they really can do this, so they know how to how to fly by drone.
Yeah.
It's cool, I believe, and girls of my age do.
And also right now, I think we have to also understand that even the very idea of controlling drones, the controller that you're using, they're utilizing PS5, PS4 controls, and they're actually researching about that. So, do you think, Dr. Boros, that this could be a possibility moving forward?
I just read a book. It's science fiction. So it's Matt Dinniman's new book, Operation Bounce House. I do recommend it to you because it's about the far future, but it's about gamers.
And so you
using
will like
such warfare technologies. I don't want to spoil anything about it, but it's possibly we are there at this point. It's just like already we moved into the Indo-Pacific, and obviously we are arriving at the end. We won't have that much time left, but definitely we have to talk about just one article I picked from a few days back. Taiwan is having a budget cut. And it seems that budget cut will cost their drone capabilities, it seems. Is it a smart decision at these times in that region to cut these technologies, while I believe all the other countries are looking at the laboratory Ukraine, are looking at the field actually right now within Ukraine and within the Middle East as well, learning from these. So I'm pretty sure that all the other countries within the region, within the Indo-Pacific, the narrower region, within the Southeast Asian region, are looking into such capacities.
Yeah. When you think about budget, just for transparency's sake, I was also part of the government before. I was working for the government. And then when you think about budgets, there are budgets that you can see and there are budgets that you can't see. And when you signal that, okay, we're going to have a budget cut, I am pretty much sure that you already factored in a projection towards this possible threat, threat assessment, And the thing here is that when you think about Taiwan has one particular thing that other nations don't, and this is the Silicon Firewall, TSMC. TSMC, if you haven't heard about it, is the most important company when you think about semiconductors, when you think about chips. And when you think about Taiwan, do they really need that amount of money in order for them to capitalize on this particular technology if it's already done organically? And that is something that we have to understand. And they have mutual agreements with other countries as well that could make it cost effective. So can we therefore say that their drone program would be in peril? Not exactly. But can we say that it could be restructured to some other thing? Possibly. Can people see it in plain sight in white papers? Not entirely. So we have to understand that. We have to take it with a grain of salt when you think about planners, when you think about budgets that you can see in media. Because I just want to take this into consideration, going back to Europe and turning back to the Indo-Pacific. You have to understand that, for example, I'm just going to take this particular data coming from War and Sanctions platform, coming from the Ukrainian army and Ukrainian defense website. The Geran-2 or Shahed-136 drone has necessary parts that are sourced coming from Europe. I'm going to give you an example. There are parts here. I'm not going to say the company, but there are parts here that were notified to come from Austria, from Germany, from Spain, from Netherlands, from Switzerland, and also from Ireland.
Our beautiful interconnected world.
So when you think about that, and now harking back to the Indo-Pacific region, when you think about drone technologies, one of the things that a lot of people don't see is that ASEAN is one of the largest economic blocs in the world, who's got a capacity that is quite rivaling China.
China already understand that.
Yes.
They do.
Yes, they do. I agree. That is why we have to understand that the United States is trying to counter that with one particular project, and it is the Paxilica project. And this is the kind of the project that the United States is trying to do to decentralize the threat coming from Taiwan. So they're creating partnerships and agreements to several countries to bolster AI, to bolster semiconductor technology, supply chains. And this is because Taiwan wants to decentralize that threat because they don't want another Port of Hormuz incident, whereas the world stops because of that particular conflict. And is this signaling, therefore, that there could be possible conflict? They're getting ready for that.
That's how, China also will be restricted, I would say, by USA in Taiwan district, because I passed through article and its definition like that, hellscape, was by Admiral Sam Papero. So basically what's happening, so it's a USA plan to turn the Taiwan Strait into an unnamed danger zone during any Chinese invasion will happen there. And also that's how China will be controlled, I would say. That's
and also you have to always remember, of course, China knows that China is like the world's
superpower,
so like they can manufacture almost everything under the sun, and that is why the international community right now are banding together to protect the sanctity of international law. For example, in the West Philippine Sea and the South China Sea, that is why a lot of these things matter geopolitically, geostrategically, because we have to understand that it is not just about drones. Now we're proceeding towards the securitization of supply chains. Now we have to extend to that particular idea of how drones are manufactured, and it is manufactured by different states, by the globalized world. Interdependency is key. So now we have to look into the Indo-Pacific. What would be the particular thing that we have to look forward in the Indo-Pacific? I really think that if we want to really control, because decentralization of drone technology is quite dangerous, number one, if it's not going to be regulated. I really think that right now, just like the example that I said a while ago, wherein a drone is, the component parts are manufactured from different parts of the world. Export controls is one particular thing that we have to think about. Export controls, primarily for the listeners right now, is when a particular state controls the flow of exports from one country to the next. And if, for example, for sanctions, if one country is sanctioning the other, they cannot trade certain parts to another state that is considered to be dangerous. So when you think about that, when you think about partnerships, now you extend the idea of drones into a geostrategic political battle that is happening right now in the Indo-Pacific. And that is why when you think about drone technology, when you think about kinetic warfare, it's no longer just about that. The wars are fought not only by asymmetric warfare, there's also gray zone warfare and hybrid warfare. So these are kinds of warfares that are currently happening right now, and that could actually change during this ongoing war in the Russia-Ukraine war would trickle down to the planning of the Indo-Pacific security region. So yes.
And also, Enzo, as you mentioned about interdependence, here we can see it's recent news. So in September 2025, Taiwan, Ukraine, and Poland, they signed a memorandum of understanding. And basically what Taiwan will do, so they provide technologies and components. It's agreement in drone sector, and Ukraine share military experience, basically, and Poland give logistic and expertise. So it was really important, I believe, because it was first official trilateral agreement in drone sector. And I believe also, as we can see, as Enzo, you mentioned before, that if we look at drone, we have so many different components from other countries. So it's basically happened like that. Even when Taiwan exported it to Poland and Czech Republic, some components, it gone to Ukraine. That's how it's happened. And now they signed an agreement like that.
Okay. So just to give you a highlight, I'm going to pull it out from my notes. As of 2016, there are 13 signatories to the Pax Silica Declaration. United States, Australia, Finland, Europe, right? Greece, India, Israel, Japan, Qatar, Korea, South Korea, Singapore, Sweden, UAE, UK, and of course, in addition, there's also Canada and the Netherlands, but then again, they're non-signatory observers or as guests. So now it's no longer just Indo-Pacific.
Yeah.
The EU is also actually throwing their hat in that supply chain.
So something Ukraine has right now, which obviously is going to define the future of our region, the region of our interest in that sense. I believe that this could be a good point to finish off the very first episode. And honestly, I have to say thank you very much for the discussion. I'm pretty sure that into many directions we can continue.
Yes.
Both with the Ukrainian consequences on global issues, because I believe that that's also something that we'll have to deal with, and focusing on further on the Indo-Pacific issues. It's a quite wide reality. Definitely we're going to have topic to focus on. Thank you very much for following us. This was our first and pilot episode, and obviously we are looking for your feedback as well, because we are eager to continue.
Yes,
and move on. But obviously it's important to understand how it was going. So thank you very much for listening and watching us, and hope to see you in the future as well. Lana, Enzo, thank you very much.
And thank you very much for everyone for listening, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.